Welcome to this week's channel. We've had an onslaught of journalists coming over from Lancashire in the form of Mark Stone and Steve Berry. Welcome, chaps.
Nice to be here, young man.
Yes, indeed.
This will be a great banter show. The whole idea of this is we're just going to talk about things off the cuff. There's not going to be many questions. We're just going to run about the period of time we're in at the moment. And the sort of issues we've got at the moment is that on June the 1st, the dealerships in this area and around the country have just opened up. I just want to get talking about how this is going to affect the car market, how it's going to affect dealerships, how we go about buying cars, and how it's going to affect the classic car market, which is my forte. So I'm just going to pass it over. What do you think is going to happen in this current market?
Well, it's reckoned that there's approximately, 1.4 million brand new cars sat in dealerships, and the dealers are going to want to shift them because for 8-10 weeks it's been dead money sat there.
Yeah.
So there has got to be some serious deals being offered, and it's like I've been saying, if Berry's car dealership won't offer you a deal, Harrison's dealership will. So it's a buyer's market. But once this great massive brand new cars has been sold, the problem is the manufacturers, okay, most of them now are in Europe, but it's still the same. A lot of the cars that are partially completed or waiting to start build, a lot of the companies that supply componentry for them may not be there. So the JIT system, the just-in-time system, might not be just in time anymore until they go and find new suppliers for certain components. I mean, Steve's heavily involved in all this like I am. I mean, I don't know what your opinion is of this.
Well, the problem with what I think about it is that it might not be very popular. That'd be a first, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Me saying something controversial.
Let's try something new.
Hey, I think people might have got used to doing and mending.
Yeah,
if
the
you
old
will.
style. The old style.
I think they might start to think, do I actually need a new car? Why do I need a new car? This one, I mean, it's a strange business, car sales, isn't it? Most people have no concept of the route that a car takes from the factory to your driveway, how it gets there, how many hands it passes through, how many business deals are done, where the money is made. I mean, you were talking, Mark, about deals to be done, but when a dealership, and what is a dealership? I mean, one of the things my partner found strangest coming to Britain from North America was that you didn't buy your mobile phone from the person that made it. You didn't just go to the Apple store and buy an iPhone from Apple, the people who made it. No, you used to go to Carphone Warehouse.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
But why did we accept that third party between the manufacturer and the consumer? We've always done that in the UK.
I think it's because it's the way it's always been.
Exactly,
the
Mark.
people.
Yeah.
This is.
But why? Why?
But people are used to it, so that's what they accept it.
But
So now, when you look into the way that a car is sold and who's selling it, for instance, I made some instructional videos which can be seen on YouTube for the Co-op, and they hired me, and it was basic stuff. It was just kind of how to change a wheel. Incidentally, why do people say changing a tyre?
Changing
a wheel, yeah.
Changing a tyre is quite a complicated job, isn't it? Involving high-powered machinery powered by compressed air. It's changing a wheel. So it was stuff like that. When they hired me for the gig, I said, "Who is this?" And they said, "It's the Co-op." And I said, "What? The Co-op own car dealerships?" And somebody said, "Yeah, they're the biggest car dealer in the UK."
Yeah, they were.
I was like, really?
I remember them buying up the dealerships.
Yeah.
I remember them just going around the little dealerships and buying them all up.
But this is kind of my point. I didn't know, and I'm in this
I didn't
game
know.
because they cleverly didn't change the name of the dealership.
That's right, you're correct.
So it didn't start saying the Co-op outside. It just said Henleys or
That's
Harrison's
right.
or
And no big
Stones or
publicity.
whatever.
There were no big things in the paper like you get now, where so and so's bought for £20 million this dealership. It just happened.
So when they sell a car now, are they making the money on the price that you pay in the showroom? And what is that price? Because how many people... a car dealer I was at school with, Greg, a friend of mine, he said, I shouldn't have said that because it's kind of identified him. so I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to anyway. He said the worst thing for me is somebody who comes into the dealership with a carrier bag full of cash.
Yeah, they don't want it.
He said that's no good to me.
Yeah.
He said I am selling cars, but, and I think we all know this. I don't know if everybody does, but what we're really selling here is finance.
Yeah.
When you watch the commercial in the cinema or on the TV, at the end of the commercial it'll say, whichever car company is operated by blah 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 and can put you in touch with the same name of the car company.
Yeah.
And you think, what do you mean Peugeot Finance can put you in touch with Peugeot
It's all
cars?
in-house. Everything's in-house.
Yeah, but they're not selling the car. They're not selling metal.
They're selling a package.
They're selling a contract.
Yeah, that's it.
And how much of that contract? God, this is exciting, isn't it? No, but I think it's interesting. It's maybe not that entertaining. I do apologise, but how much of the money that they're making is on the car, and how much is it on parts and servicing?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Andy?
I reckon
Over its lifetime, do they make more money on servicing and parts? Surely they do.
Definitely. They want you to stay in the dealership. They make the money out of the finance package. They want to keep that in-house. They do service. This is why you get all these 5-year service plans now. You get these mega warranties, mega service plans. Predominantly people on my everyday side of my business, we struggle a bit with that, because once you lose your customer to a new car, you've lost them for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the classic car market. So they make a lot of money that side. It keeps its customer retention. So providing they look after them right, they retain them. I agree with you, they don't like people going in with bags of cash. And to be fair, the way they do deals now, it's actually not a good way to buy a car.
No.
You might as well use the deal. I mean, there's these things where you pay for 50% now, and in 2 years' time, you can either decide to pay the other half, or you can just go in and they'll do you a mega deal on your next car, because they want your used vehicle.
Yeah.
Because that's when that car makes profit. The car makes profit when it becomes a used vehicle, because then it's got a unit value, then it's got its markup, then it's on the pitch. That's where they make money.
A mate of mine, I won't identify this one, Andrew, told me that the reason he said there are 2 reasons that I'm trying to get the customer to spec their car up in the showroom. And it's exactly what you said. You've just confirmed it.
The next person.
He said, because I'm thinking that car's coming back to me down the line, so I want it to have a decent spec, so I've got a good chance of selling it for a good price.
Yeah.
He's already thinking 3
it's
years down the line, when he's selling that car as a used car, when that person comes back and says, oh, the latest Mondeo. Does Mondeo still exist?
It does.
It does,
Yeah,
yes.
it's
But it's not the posh ones now,
Yeah.
the Vignali.
Yeah, it's the Vignali, isn't it? And it's got a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I agree
It's
with
a
you.
size, yeah.
They're already working, so I've been involved in a deal not so long ago where when they picked the car up, they were already saying, even though it was a 4-year package, at 2 years we'll be calling you.
Yeah.
You will definitely, our salesman will definitely be calling you, because we'll want your car. And the deal will be that incredible you'll want to swap, because they want that used vehicle, because it's the used vehicle where they make money.
I mean, it's getting to the stage where some people at a 2-year-old car, the dealership will ring them up and virtually pay them to sell
They do.
them
You
to
can
sell
drive out
them
there with
a
money in your
used
pocket.
car, or virtually give them a new one.
Go back 10 years, could you go in a dealer with a used car and drive out of that with your new car and money in your pocket?
No.
That's the thing. I mean, you're nearly getting paid to change your car.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
Didn't Elon Musk say that? He said the other week, he says a lot of things. I like him. I like him. He said they go on about like the original Tesla. But, and here's the thing, and it relates to motoring. They always romanticise these guys in motoring, like Preston Tucker or I'm trying to think of other people that have, there's a lot of them that have, somebody like Malcolm Bricklin or John DeLorean, who seem to have this vision, and they create this car or motorcycle sometimes, and then the whole thing comes crashing down, and people end up going to jail, or they have to go and live in South America and grow a moustache like that. Because everyone's got
Is there something
there.
you need to tell us?
No, my lockdown beard made me look like Tom Hanks in Castaway. But and the movies, obviously, because that's what movies do, they romanticise these people. But my heroes are people like Henry Ford, who was, or the founders of Fiat, who were as much businessmen as they were engineers, and they realised. I've just written a piece for Auto Italia this month, available from all good bookshops and newsagents if they were open, but they're not. So get it on subscription. And it's about the Lancia Beta, which is one of the most notorious cars in history, but it's a lesson in how to make cars.
Yeah.
Because Fiat made that car, and Lancia was Fiat then. Fiat took over Lancia in '69. The Beta was conceived in 2 years, start to finish, and they used as many parts from the Fiat group as they possibly could,
as possible,
including a Citroen gearbox, because Fiat had just acquired Citroen briefly, or they'd done some sort of deal that was also to do with Michelin and Pirelli. And it's very interesting if you look at what the role that the big European tyre companies have had in European motoring. You know, with Pirelli having a huge stake in Fiat, and at one point Michelin owning Citroen. You know, so you think, wow, it's almost like the cart was leading the horse, if you will. But if you look at the life of the Lancia Beta, it was a lesson in how to make money by making cars. You know, if you can save a bit of money. I remember I was with Giugiaro, good name to drop, Giugiaro Giugiaro, the genius of car design, I think, the presiding genius of them all, because he was as good at everyday cars as he was at supercars. And I actually asked him this, I said, Maestro, I thought that'd get his attention. I said, Maestro, and he turned around immediately, he was talking to somebody else, and I said, your greatest creation? And he went, Panda Originale. Like that. Yeah, and he was saying that one of the best things they did on the Panda was to have one string retain in the glove box when it dropped down instead of two. Because over 20 years of production and millions of cars, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is.
And it's the thing about making great cars, great motorcycles, you know, you look at like I said, we were talking about Vincent off camera. Great, but they couldn't make a dollar. They couldn't turn a profit. Brough Superior the same. Like we said, DeLorean, Colin Chapman with Lotus, they staggered from one crisis, one financial crisis,
beyond business.
Well, they were
so enthusiastic about the product.
You need both, because what inevitably happens is you have to stop doing what you're doing, because men in suits turn up and go, right, stop this, like this.
But that's the design stage. You notice now, and I've watched a lot of programmes lately of modern day cars where you've got your design, like your new Range Rovers and stuff like this, and the designers get going first and they design this product, and then they have a meeting after with the bean counters, and it's like a war. And, you know, you talk to these people, it's an actual war in a room, arguing.
I mean, there's the famous thing that some guy once said to Aston Martin, I want you to sell me that car for exactly what it costs you to build. And they said, well, you better give us £1,000 more than we're selling them for.
But that's the Mini. Imagine such a design icon, we're blowing money every time they made one. It's just bonkers, isn't it? Bonkers sense.
Well, so like I said, that's why the Beta, where they used the twin cam, they used that Citroen gearbox, which was ready to go, and they thought, right, okay, but it was clever, because it was a saloon, a convertible. They called it the Spider, because it was that time when all the European manufacturers thought the Americans were going to ban convertibles. So everything was Targa, like the Porsche and the Lancia, and stuff from here as well. And the Americans annoyingly didn't ban convertibles, so they're always doing stuff like that. But it was all kinds of different cars, but underneath it was the same car. And that's how they learn you actually make money. The best example of how that's not a good idea is Riley. At one point, Riley, as you both know, were a relatively small British manufacturer, but made fantastic cars. My granddad had a supercharged two-seater Riley that he used to chase villains when he was. Well, he told me that when the Mark II Jag appeared, the criminals, as we know from British movies of the period, latched onto them immediately. He said, and in the Z cars, the Zephyrs and the Zodiacs, not a prayer of catching a Mark II Jag. Even if it was 5 blokes who saw off shotguns to the back, not a prayer. So he got his Riley out, and he said we used to chase them up towards Preston. If they did a bank job in Manchester, and you look at, people talk about crime, you look at crime from the 20 years after the war, there was a lot of armed crime in this country. Because there were a lot of guns floating about. A lot of guns and not a lot of idea how to protect things. Well, people were used to shooting and getting shot.
Yeah.
And there was actually a lot of crime during the war.
Yeah.
And people don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, wild.
Well, the number of murders where a bloke could come back on leave and find out that his missus had taken up with somebody else.
Yeah.
And guess what he came home with?
A gun.
His gun. So, but Riley, getting back to Riley, their range was bewildering.
Yeah,
the number of models that they offered and body styles and engine configurations and all that sort of stuff. So guess what happened? They went bankrupt.
Yeah, they did. It's nowadays cars, because there's a lot of cars being shared, so you've got your Peugeot, your Citroen, you've got your Vauxhall, everything's got a basic floor plan, a basic structure, a basic sort of design, and they can make cars to a penny. You can virtually value a car to a penny. And an interesting thing you were on about earlier with the JIT system is how the manufacturers use Joe Bloggs on the outside to do their stock holding.
Yeah.
Because they are literally, I've been to manufacturers and had a look where they go, right, we're here, we'll run out of parts in 36 hours if them parts don't keep rolling in. And one of the big examples of that is when we had the last fuel crisis where wagon drivers were doing blockades. Manufacturers were grinding to a halt because the wagons couldn't get to them. They're literally only 36 hours away at any period of running out of parts for the cars.
Yeah.
But that's somebody else carrying the stock. And the JIT system, another side of it is when you're on about profit. When you think about profit in a car, there's profit right from the word go. Right from the minute you buy the steel, the rubber, and that gets sold to Joe Bloggs at profit. And then he makes the switch gear, and that's got profit on it, and your glass and your rubbers, and there's profit all the way through. There's taxes all the way through. These cars are just growing in cost by the build.
But one interesting thing, and Steve mentioned it, Riley, a vast selection of models.
Yeah.
You could say that now about BMW. I mean, you look at BMW's range.
Yeah, you bang on that.
And you look at it and you think BMW's range is bewildering.
They're competing with themselves.
Yeah.
Another great example of that was Alfa Romeo in the late 80s. They had the Alfa 6, the Alfa 90 and the Alfa 75.
Yeah.
They were all four-door saloon cars available with that V6 engine.
Yeah.
So you went into the showroom and they had the old, I've got the 71 Alfa Spider, the camtail, the 2 litre Veloce. But by the time it got to Series 4 and they'd put plastic over all the chrome. Why did we ever think that was an idea? Oh, get rid of this horrible chrome and put some lovely plastic on there. And all this, you just think, oh. So they'd have that in the corner. And then 3 saloon cars of almost the same size, almost the same configuration. You just think, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah, you're never going to make money, are they? You're just you're grinding yourself into the floor.
Yeah,
with
but
that sort.
look what happened with Alfa when they came out with the 156 and 147.
Yeah.
How many of them did they sell in the UK?
Yeah.
What a great...
Good-looking cars.
It was a great
You knew where you
car.
were with them, so you knew your 147 with your hatchback, your 156 with your family saloon car,
And
your
you got-
166
you got-
with your big executive. Where'd you go from there? It's
Yeah,
just
and
perfect.
it was British touring car, was at its height,
Yeah,
it was a super
Tarquini,
touring era,
yeah.
Gabriele Tarquini.
Tarquini.
Who was that tiny Italian guy who had that massive crash?
Well, Tarquini had the big one at Knocker where they went end over end.
Yeah.
So I can remember being at Ulton Tarquini, came out of his motorhome for qualifying. They to virtually help him into the car, then help him back out and stick him back in his motorhome, and pour coffee down him until
Keep it
But
going.
it worked, didn't it?
Yeah,
You think about
marketing were fantastic.
Tim Harvey and the Peugeot, the 406, and the 406 was a handsome car. The coupe was a great looking car, but its exploits was Patrick Watt's Peugeot as well. I think.
Patrick Watts was a great driver. Great driver.
Shut up! Stop going just because we know Patrick.
We know him. He's a great driver.
Anthony Reid was a brilliant driver as well.
I like Patrick Watts.
Last time I met Patrick Watts, he can I scrounge your fag off you? That's the only thing I know about. Every time I try and avoid him because can I have a cigarette?
But great cars. It seemed in that time, we're talking early 90s, that the European car manufacturers realised that if you made good-looking cars with a high spec and you went racing, people like that.
Win Sunday by Monday.
Yeah,
Volvo.
Enzo's famous motto.
Yeah, look at Ford. Look at Ford with the Mondeo and the programme that they had. Nissan as well. I remember driving, was it the Almira that they race. Yeah,
Yeah,
because Reedy raced the Almira, the Nissan Almira.
Or Matt Neal when he took the privateer check.
Yeah,
exactly.
First time it was done.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And they took us out to South Africa to drive the road cars, and they were really sporty.
Yeah.
They were great to drive, and
Great engines.
I thought, wow, the car makers have realised even something as workaday and as kind of sliced white bread as a Nissan family car. Why not just make it more interesting? And you know, if you start to press on a little bit, an entertaining drive, and I think that's gone now.
Oh, it's definitely
when I get in a car like that today, there's no rawness about it. There's no engagement really.
Do you know what it
you
is?
just point it and it goes to where you pointed it, and if you think of bad things happening, you can just stand on everything and it'll sort it out for
The
you.
era you're on about, you could be behind a blank canvas and it'd drive past you, you'd be able to say what the car was.
Yeah.
If you could drive a car blindfolded, which I know is silly, you could tell what car you were driving in that period of time. You'd be able to tell you were in an Almira, a Primera, an Alpha 156.
That Primera GT was a bloody great
car.
It didn't look that good, and that was for me. I mean, this is going to sound like three middle-aged men talking about back in the day, but I think the early '90s. I mean, a pal of mine he's had a lot of good cars, but when we get together to talk cars, we always go back to what was his first car, because he was a late bloomer. He's a creative person, and he made nothing for years and years, and then landed big. And the first thing he did was buy a Clio Williams. And he still talks about that. We still talk about
fabulous
that car.
cars.
He's had loads since then, but he said, "I'll never forget that car."
But that's the last era of cars like that. You know that, because the way modern cars have gone, and the emissions and the noise and the safety, them little one-off specials, there'll be few and far between. That's even going into Lotus and things like that. They're finding it harder and harder to make that car that people like us like. They're becoming more generic, they're becoming quieter. We're heading, God forbid, we're heading towards electric. We're heading that way. Did any of us come in an electric car today?
No.
I think they make internal combustion engine cars look stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They do.
I saw something on telly the other day when it had a drag race with what were classed as 4 fairly leery cars. Had the latest Tesla on the outside, it destroyed them. It wasn't even close. Normally it's fairly close.
It's just the way that they work.
Yeah.
There's two kinds. Well, there's more than two kinds of driving, but essentially there are two kinds of driving: driving for pleasure and driving to get from A to B.
Yeah.
And to get from A to B, I don't see why you wouldn't drive an electric car. But for pleasure, you know, so you can skip these, like we're saying, from the mid-90s to now, most cars are boring.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Maybe not to a lot of people, but to me they are. They lack that engagement that something like a Clio Williams or a Peugeot 205 GTE, an original BMW M3, even the Chris Bangle Fiat Coupe with a 5-cylinder engine,
I love
the 20-valve turbo. I mean, they've really. By the way, if anyone's looking for like a modern classic, buy a good one of them.
I agree. I definitely agree with that.
Because there's a lot of really horrible used and abused examples. But if you can find one, especially in Portofino blue, that hasn't been messed with.
Is that your favourite?
Well, it's between that and broom yellow.
Yeah. I like the blue. I've got to say, I like the
broom yellow
blue.
But if you can find one of them that hasn't been fiddled with, and get the 20-valve turbo, don't worry about the turbo. That'll be knackered, but it's easy to replace. If you can find one of them that isn't covered in dings and bangs and scratches, and the interior's good, because the interiors were. It was an affordable car. The interior looked great,
made
but
to a price.
Wasn't that made? That is a modern classic, and they are enormous fun to drive. I remember when a performance car, because a mate of mine was working on it at the time, they did a track test and said, how fast are road cars compared to a racing car? And they had a couple of British touring car, full spec works cars there, and the Fiat Coupe 20-valve turbo got nearest to these two races, and it got very, very close in terms of a lap time to a British touring car. They were amazed because they thought it would just be massive sort of torque steer all over the place.
I mean, you just mentioned classics. The one thing I've had on my radio show, Backseat Driver radio show, Dry Stone Radio, 103.5 FM, old guest, next guest, is young people into classic cars, but they're not. It's not their hobby. It's like a girl I've just interviewed, Becca Mackay from Northern Ireland. She spends her time in Northern Ireland. She drives a Morris Minor saloon every day in England.
Yeah.
When she's in Ireland, she drives her dad's Morris Minor convertible. There's clubs coming up now for late teens, early 20s. They own classic cars of all eras, but it's not the hobby. It's their everyday car. So it's like the ultimate in recycling in its own way. Because certain classic cars like Morris Minors and the Minis, you can get the spare parts for. And the other thing is, it's like Becca said, she's on social media as the girl with the old car. She pops the bonnet on the Minor if it's gone wrong, gets his spanners out, and it's there, it can be worked on. You don't have to lift plastic cowls off it. You don't have to plug a laptop into it.
I've got a controversial opinion again.
Go on then.
Young people aren't bothered about cars, full stop.
The ones I've encountered, are.
Yeah, but that's
Do you-
like, that's,
what era though? What year
hold
do you
on.
think?
That's like me saying, loads of my mates have got motorbikes. Yeah, because I'm me. Of course,
No, I get
loads of my
that.
mates have got
Obviously,
motorbikes.
I get a lot of young men, but I know what you're on about.
So, the thing is, some are, and they stand out, but it's nothing like it was in our day. So if you got, all right, I'll give you an example. If you went past the sixth form college that I went to in the 1980s, you'd see a few bicycles in the bike shed, and then next to it, a load of Fizzies and SS50s and Yamaha DTs and my Vespa 50 Special.
Yeah.
You know, a crowd of them. If you went past now, I bet you wouldn't see one internal combustion engine vehicle. They're not bothered about motorbikes and they're not bothered about classic cars. It's not their thing.
They've not got
Their
the
thing-
passion we had. That's the difference.
No, but here's the thing. I think if it goes away, we shouldn't be too sad about it. It's just because times change. You know, it's like one of the things for me about being British and travelling around this country is that you see the architecture and you see how much money there must have been in certain parts, particularly here in the north of England. I was in Burslem, near Stoke-on-Trent the other day. There were some magnificent buildings in a town which is now on its arse, really. I mean, it's, you know, there's no two ways about it. But you see these buildings that have gone through numerous uses. You know, so originally it was built as a music hall. Yeah. And then that went away, and then it became a cinema when the talking pictures came along.
Then a bingo
Then it
hall.
was a bingo hall, absolutely.
But we've got that round here. That's exactly the same round
And
here.
there was one that I saw, and it was a fantastic building. And now it's a Wetherspoons.
Yeah.
And whoever doesn't credit Tim Martin doesn't give him the credit for saving so many special buildings in Britain, which they've done. Yeah, it's a generic thing. Yeah, he's a pretty controversial guy. I like him, and he saved the Art Picture House in Bury, a beautiful Art Deco building, which has started to collapse. And without Wetherspoons coming in and doing that, it would have just fallen into further decay and would have been demolished by now. But my point being this: those of us that love internal combustion, bikes and cars, and have a lifelong fascination with it, shouldn't be surprised if a generation comes along that doesn't share our passion and our enthusiasm for it. It's like music. We're now at a point where all those great British musicians are about to either retire or sadly die.
Yeah,
because
time.
we're 50 years on from that incredible explosion of rock and roll music. And again, it was brilliant, but it couldn't last forever. And we're going to have to get used to our heroes passing on in the next few years because packing it in, because they get into that age. And we should think the same about our passion for cars and bikes, and actually grandstanding and saying, no, they are into it. It's almost like you're going, I refuse to accept that young people don't like the same things that I do. And so
well, you can take this further. I mean, we've just had a transport minister who seems to know absolutely zero about transport, which is nothing new, decide that nobody actually works more than 4 miles from where they live. And then he's decided to change the law so everybody can be on electric scooters.
Yeah.
I mean, it won't be long before they'll be shoveling them into buckets and trying to get them cut them off the bus's back axle and things like that. I mean, what the plan for future is ludicrous. Talking about new bus lanes. You spend time in Europe, especially Holland, places like that. They built the bus lanes and the cycle lanes. It was built in. In England, they haven't done it. The other thing you get is, and funnily enough, there's one in North Wales. The council have spent £1 million on new cycle lanes, and where will the cyclists not cycle?
Yeah.
The bloody cycle lanes.
Got you.
Speaking
Right.
as a keen cyclist,
Before we go any further, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but we're on about young people and classic cars, and we're going to bring our apprentice in with the coffees now. This will prove
That's
that
not
we
like, that's
that
not
we
your
like.
apprentice,
So
that's
get
my
Jack to
better
bring-
off.
So here we are with young people and classic cars, and we've got one here.
I'd love it if they were, but they're not, and there are all sorts of
It's a
reasons.
period of time. I get what you say. But
But I can fill an arena with classic cars with young owners.
No, I get that. But the moment in time he's on about, and it was perfect what you said about the rock stars that are unfortunately passing away. You've got that with racing drivers, you've got it with actors and actresses, i.e. actors.
Yeah.
You've got it with your rock
Thank
stars, you've got it with your TV personalities. That things happened in a period of time. So you've got a lot of people around an age group that are all growing up around a similar age group, and I'm one of them.
I think the thing is, we're of an age now where all of a sudden it dawns on you there is such a thing as mortality.
There is.
You might still think like a 20-odd-year-old, but when you look in the mirror in the morning, you're looking at a bloody 60-year-old, which does come as a...
Well, we've just seen you acting like one getting out of my head, boy.
Yes, I had to be assisted out of your single-seater. But there again, it's like I said, the last single-seater I had to be helped out of was Nicky Lauder's 312.
Oh, I can't match that, can I? I can't match that.
I was looking at something the other day because I'm researching a documentary about a British racing driver called Archie Scott Brown.
Oh yeah.
One arm?
I was going to say I had one on him.
Well, he didn't have one arm, gentlemen, but he had one hand. He was missing a hand.
Missing a hand.
He's missing a hand because his mother contracted German measles while she was pregnant. Anti-vaxxers, by the way. And so he was born with one hand and no shin. He was born with incredible disability, which he overcame and became a very successful racing driver.
Really
and
successful,
and his
yeah.
partnership with Brian Lister was similar to Colin Chapman's partnership with Jim Clark. It was more than team owner and racing driver.
Dig in.
It was.
You will, of course,
I will.
want a Jaffa cake, Steve, won't you?
Yeah, but I'm enjoying the
We thought we
sound.
might shut you up.
Enjoying the sound. Enjoying the sound of my own voice as usual. No, but I have a passion for this story because I think a lot of people know the Jim Clark, Colin Chapman story, but they don't know the Brian Lister, Archie Scott Brown story. It's a perfect partnership between a driver and a team owner. He was very successful, Archie, in his brief career, won a ridiculous number of races, and was tragically killed at Spa in an accident that was captured on film, which is remarkable because so little of his driving career was filmed. But although I have found some colour footage of him, which I don't think too many people knew existed.
You've got to remember when you say that they caught footage of him having his accident, that you're in a period of time that was A, extremely dangerous, and B, people were fascinated on film of things like that.
Yeah.
We'd be horrified now if you watched a modern day Formula 1 race and one of our heroes unfortunately had an accident and the worst thing happened. We wouldn't be fascinated by it. You actually nearly wouldn't want to watch it. But in that period of time, because it was so new and so fascinating, and racing drivers were heroes, that it was part of the fascination of the sport.
I think the thing is, when you say people I suppose you could say it's going to be a regrettable thing. Us three would be interested in seeing the footage, not to see the accident, but to see why it happened,
Yeah,
how
what
it
went
happened,
wrong.
to see the technical,
right. Do you want-
well, that's how I
fault
work.
that caused
Like
it.
we were talking about this only yesterday. Sometimes terrible tragedy in motor racing has black comedy attached to it.
Yeah, I get that.
Archie's accident looks innocuous. The accident that killed him. He comes off at Spa. If I say it, it's going to sound like I'm trivialising his death, and I'm not. But I'm saying. And the guy who said this, Max Wakefield, who's known to you,
He
he's
is.
a good,
Fabulous guy.
great guy, good friend of mine, and he's raced all kinds of things. I said to him, "You've raced too many things," so he's kind of spread his talents so far. Because he's raced historic Formula 1 and Speedway on motorbikes. and I challenge anyone else. I challenge
That's some
anyone
weighing
else.
scale,
Yeah,
that,
Makes John Surtees look like he didn't try really,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
So, anyway, we were talking about you have to accept that this could happen, that you can be killed at any time. And where Archie came off at Spa is exactly the point where Richard Seaman came off.
Right.
So Archie comes off, and again, please, right, if anybody laughs, there's going to be trouble. Archie hit the memorial to Richard Seaman, the stone plinth, and it flipped his car over and killed him. You think
ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. Ironic?
Yeah.
It's like, what? Was Spa not dangerous enough to start with?
Yeah.
You know, is it? I mean, it's an amazing circuit.
Yeah.
Have either of you driven?
Driven Spa. It's incredible.
I used to. The last time I drove, it was when the bus stop was one.
To me, Spa is 1/3 Cadwell Park, 1/3 the TT course, and 1/3 the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's got elements of all three of those circuits.
Well, the other thing is, like the Nordschleife, it can be a hot summer's day in the pits.
Yeah, then when you get down the other end, it's raining.
It's 10 degrees colder and pouring.
You've had that in Formula 1 when they're doing the commentary and they've got the pitch straight and it's chucking it down. Every time they get to far end at circuit, it's glorious.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
But that's motorsport.
But to get back to my point, eventually, I saw this shot of a crowd at Alton Park watching a race that Archie was in, and I thought, look at all those people turned out for a race that wasn't a major, it wasn't Grand Prix, and I thought there was less to do.
Yeah.
That's your period of time thing again. So I've got photographs of old touring car races in the 60s, and it's a sea of people. Yeah. Now I know touring cars is a busy format now, I get it, I fully get it. But look at a photograph from the 50s and the 60s of touring cars, and the amount of people that were there. But that's your period of time, because you just hit it. Look at what people can do to entertain themselves nowadays.
Here's going on from that. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he mentioned this. I always assumed that my friend's father was a motorcyclist because he talked to me. We met at university, and he talked to me about going to the Isle of Man, the island. I should be there now. Was there? I got a Facebook thing this morning with a picture of me and my son. It was my son's first TT. We'd gone to together. We took bicycles to the Isle of Man because we wanted to get fit as well. So we thought we'll just cycle round all over the island. It just poured with rain for the entire. We had the crossing on the ferry from Haitian to the island was done in blazing sunshine. There's a picture of the two of us with a pint of Guinness on the wall. Our first TT, dad and lad together like this, having a pint of Guinness. And then the whole week it just poured with rain. But it was the Isle of Man. But I'd always assumed that my pal's father was a motorcyclist because he has no interest in motorcycles. He's never ridden a motorbike. Yeah. And he only told me recently, he said, no, we used to go to the TT for the spectacle.
Yeah.
My
entertainment.
Yeah. It was an entertainment. Yeah, it was something to see.
Yeah.
And I thought, back in the day, people would do that. They would, like lots and lots of people. We mentioned Speedway earlier. Lots of people used to go and watch. Speedway was the second biggest spectator sport in the UK at one point.
Yeah, I used to go watch.
Speedway. I mean, it was serious, like.
But they weren't motorcyclists.
No, it was not being funny. Le Mans 24 hours. You can go to Le Mans 24 hours, or when I used to go, you didn't actually have to watch the racing. There was so much more going on. That
I've just done that.
The racing was basically just an add-on, daft as it sounds.
I went to Le Mans in 2019, a 24-hour race, and watched about an hour's worth of motorsport.
Yeah, because there's that
much going on around it. Don't get me wrong, it was car themed. Yeah, but there was loads going on.
Andy, what are you watching when you're actually watching live the racing?
Boom.
About 100 odd yards type of thing.
There's two kinds of sport, aren't there? The sport that's devised as a paid-for entertainment.
Yeah.
And particularly here in the UK, there's posh people's sport.
Yeah.
And the best example of that is polo. If you go to polo, which is the largest playing field of any sport, everything's happening so far away.
You can't see it.
You can't see anything. The ball's big. It's 200 yards away.
It's all the entertainment.
But there's a lot of champagne going on.
Of course, dear boy.
Corporate entertainment.
Hey, I went to Henley. I went to the Henley Regatta. Was it last year or the year before? I think every so often somebody go clap like this. we were in the posh bit. We were in the steward's enclosure, which sounds like it's at a cattle market or something. But apparently that's the place to be. So I'd just go, and I'd think, oh, they finished. Oh, never mind. Well done. Anyway, more of this. So there's sport like that, and then there's sport that's devised as a paid-for entertainment for working people.
Yeah.
I remember going to Daytona for the first time and doing the guided tour at Daytona, where they take you out on a bus and they let you try and walk up the banked corners
to give you an idea.
To give you an idea of how steep they are, and you think, really?
Yeah.
Because it's virtually the wall of death at one point, isn't it? It's almost vertical. And the one thing the guy says is, this place can seat like 200,000 people, and every single one of them can see the whole lap.
Yeah.
And you think, right. And they can have a burger and a beer brought to where they're sitting.
That's how you do it.
This is but this is a sport devised for the paying public.
Yeah.
I remember having only gone to Bellevue, which you just mentioned, and seen the likes of Ivan Major and Peter Collins and Barry Briggs and Ollie Olsen and all those guys that were on TV on Saturday afternoon
they
TV.
Were stars.
They were stars.
They were
Funny, Scrambling used to be on when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Marvellous.
But then my dad took me to Open Park.
Yeah.
So I've only known Speedway, where everyone can see the whole lap.
And you know what's going on.
We go to Open Park and we stand on a grassy knoll, and the cars come past us, and then they all disappear.
Yeah.
And I said to
Then
Dad,
you stand and whistle for a minute in a bit while they come round again.
what's happened?
Yeah.
Anyway, Dad said, they'll be back in a minute.
You need a group of you. You need a group of you in an event like that, though. That's what you've got to remember. When you go to like the Gold Cup, Goodwood Revival, Silverstone Classic, these big events now, it's a corporate event. Where
I don't want to
go.
I don't want to go to stuff like that
They're massive.
Unless it's a social thing and I'm meeting mates that I wouldn't
That's
normally
what you
see,
do.
or I'm driving.
And that's what we do as a team. We go along to Silverstone Classic, and you'll get in touch and say, we're at Silverstone Classic in a month's time. All right, well, I'll come down with my mates, and you all come in and you've all been around our cars and you're all part of what we do. We do loads of that, and that's what makes them events good. And I also say to people who are coming, come as a group and get yourself on a corner.
Yeah.
And it's banter, and they've got the picnic, the
Well,
camping.
the other thing, I mean, we tried Rockingham. Rockingham didn't work.
No.
But one of the best circuits for being able to see all of it is Brands Hatch Indy.
Yeah,
There's one little bit
Yeah,
where you can't
yeah.
see because they're the other side of the pits. But I would say you can see
Right.
3/4 of that lap.
Let me tell you something. I did the corporate hosting for one of the big. Who was it? I'm trying to remember. Just some big multinational company. I could mention them, but I won't because they might employ me again, and it was really good money. So I'd be a sort of hello, welcome to Silverstone, or Silverstone if you prefer, for this entertainment. Lunch will be served between 1 and 1:30. There's a variety of drinks and refreshments. Yeah. I'd be that guy.
Yeah.
And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome. And then the racing driver would come in. There'd be an argument outside because he didn't want to do it.
Yeah, usual.
He's got to do it, and you've been told you've got 4.5 minutes because he has to go next door and do it for another load of corporate guests. So I do that, and I swear to God, the number of times that this happened more than once. We switched the TVs in the corporate box to football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened more than once.
Yeah, no, I've got it.
Because a lot of the people went, and the cars went by, and they had no idea. They'd only ever seen it on telly, so they're live at Formula 1 and they go, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
like that. And they're like, that's it.
Yeah, the only way you drag the crowds now is they get on with the driver. Yeah. So like you'll have Silverstone, like you say, you've got Lewis Hamilton, and he's got such a following of people. That's what fills Silverstone. That's what keeps them in the seats, because they're cheering for one man.
I'll just tell you this now. When Jaguar were in F1, Jaguar Italia, John Lewis, who was the president and chairman, I got it, was a friend of mine, went over regularly. He took a load of Jaguar dealers and Jaguar customers to Monza for the F1, and the only car they stood up and cheered was the Ferrari.
Yeah.
They were guests of Jaguar.
Yeah.
Jaguar were racing. The only car they were interested in was the Ferraris.
No, I get it.
I was doing corporate work for Yamaha when Foggy won his 4th Superbike title at Assen, and I sort of blotted my copybook a bit by like leaping up and down and like knocking the furniture off and going, yeah! It's like this as the Ducati crossed the finish line.
Well, there's a comment then. So you're on about Foggy, and to me, Foggy got me into Ducatis. So watching that Superbike era, is there any era where or person or machine that's made you want to buy one because of what you watched on TV? Because it was Ducati with Fogarty with me. I mean, I've had Ducatis ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, but different in a way, because I bought my 3 litre S Ford Capri in Star Miss Silver with the black Recaro.
So this got a bit
interior.
professionals.
The professionals.
Well, I'll tell you a story. A really good story about this. Me and my mate used to meet after professionals, right? So bearing in mind we'd be 13 if any of the neighbours are watching. And we used to watch the professionals and we used to roll over neighbours' bonnets. Like we were Boney and Doyle afterwards at 13. There'd be like a Capri and we'd roll over his bonnet. Sorry neighbours.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of stuff, that's the appeal them programmes had. They dragged that out here, didn't they?
I wonder if the car companies have really, I suppose they have now, latched on to how important that sort of stuff is. Where
Well, Leyland
you've
did
got...
they? Don't you remember that the professionals started with Leyland products?
Dolomite,
They
what was
couldn't
it?
deal with the continuity of filming, so they'd pick up a TR7 and a Dolomite that were red and blue on Monday. They'd film all week. They'd come next Monday for Bodie and Doyle's car. Oh, you can take that yellow one and that green one.
Yeah.
No! And Ford came along and went, you can have half a dozen silver Capris, you can have 4 or 5 Granadas, you can have this, that, and I mean, keep hold of them. We don't want them back. Keep hold of them.
Right, well, I'll tell you a story of it. You asked me, I'll tell you the story. So, in terms of the way that my career, I do that in air commas because it's just job, innit?
You've had a good career.
Yeah, it's not been bad, but I started out wondering whether I always wanted to be a journalist, and I went to university and studied English, and I actually dropped
Did
out.
you tell your careers teacher that?
Yeah, because I went to the grammar school, and
ABC wanted a proper job on that.
well, no, journalism was considered because I'm old now, so I'm old enough to have been taking careers advice when journalism was considered a respectable career that you might actually make a living at, and so I didn't know whether I wanted to be involved in music journalism or motoring journalism. So for a while I did both,
Yeah.
and I was fortunate that the very first things I did all got published. It was a very misleading introduction to journalism because I just thought, yeah, you just write to these people and say I've done this, and then they give you money. It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was getting stuff in ID magazine and the NME and stuff like that, and I was doing motoring stuff. And I interviewed Tony Wilson, the Mancunian legend, and the owner of Factory Records. And if you came from the Northwest, bizarrely, the bloke who read our local news. Like the coolest guy in Manchester was also the guy who, when it went to the, and now your local news. Good evening, here is the news. There's been trouble at the mill. You know,
yeah.
that was Tony Wilson.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Anthony H. Wilson.
Not
And
being
he-
funny, you couldn't equate him watching on Granada reports. And then you looked at what he did with Factory Records, and technically it was the same person, but you couldn't equate
Yeah,
the
how
two.
was he,
Yeah,
how was
no.
he allowed to do the two things? It was great because he persuaded the people at Granada Television to put this show So It Goes on, and it was the first place that I saw the Jam, Buzzcocks. I remember seeing the Jam on there, and that was life changing. I just thought, this is so much better than all this nonsense that's gone before it. Because I was at that age, and I subsequently managed to get an interview with Tony. And then when I got to tell him that, he was very supportive. When he'd seen me after that at some cheese and wine shindig in Manchester, he'd come over, or I'd go over to him and he'd go, keep going, Steve, you're doing great. He was really an encouraging guy.
Sometimes you need that.
Yeah.
You
do.
to keep you going.
But so I got this interview with him, and we took a picture of him. The photographer that was with me took a picture of him smoking a massive spliff.
Yeah, yeah.
I've still got it. Don't think they used it the way. For smoking a massive spliff. But I said to him at the end of the interview, I said, I was a bit intimidated because Factory Records had this amazing office and boardroom where they had this infamous table that was suspended from the ceiling and cost a fortune, and and of course they went bankrupt. Sort of stuff. But at the end of the interview, I said, I've got to ask you a question. He said, what? I said, what's with the roof rack on the RS2000? And he said, you've remembered that I used to have a roof rack on my house? I said, yeah, of course I have.
Yeah.
I said, I was watching the television, I was about 12, 13, You were going round Alton Park in your RS2000, and I was thinking, this is so cool. But why has he got a massive roof
The
rack?
roof rack killed it.
My dad's got a massive roof rack on his Hillman Hunter
Yeah.
because he's a jobbing builder, and when he's not got the van, he slings his ladders on top of that,
Yeah,
and off he goes.
Yeah, yeah.
So why is and he said to me, simple answer, Steve, kayaks.
Oh, right.
And I went, oh right, that was it. And I was thinking, does that make it all right? Probably.